Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I'd like to ask everyone to please put your name, organization, and pronouns into the chat. Make sure you're on mute if you're not speaking. Sorry, I had to. For those whom I don't know, my name is Dave Cooper. I am the director of EARN. Thank you. And let me just say, we are so thrilled to be back in person. It is so truly wonderful to be here with all of you once again for the 2022 annual EARN Conference. I am also very happy that we are hosting EARNCon now for the third time in partnership with the Economic Policy Institute's program on race, ethnicity, and the economy, or PRE. And you'll keep, cheer for PRE, good. And you'll hear more about PRE in tomorrow's afternoon plenary session. I also just want to briefly say I hope all of the Jewish members of the EARN community had a joyous Rosh Hashanah. And I apologize again for the conference timing. We will do better next year. I also want to say we are thinking very much of our friends, family, and colleagues in Florida, and hoping everybody's safe. Excuse me. So let me just say, health and safety are paramount here at EARNCon. So we are taking additional steps you've probably seen beyond CDC guidance to reduce the risk of exposure to COVID-19 while at the conference. We ask that you please wear your masks if you're indoors and not eating, drinking, or speaking in a session. Also, folks should have gotten their COVID test kits for all 3 days of the conference, or however many days they're going to be here when they first arrived. Please, tomorrow morning and Friday morning, take the test in your hotel room, and you can just take a photo of the test result and bring that down with you. You don't need to bring the whole test kit down, but please do that before you come down to registration. It'll expedite things. I also just want to acknowledge that being at a big conference like this is probably a little unsettling for some. It might feel a little awkward at times. Folks may be a little skittish shaking hands or sitting close to each other. I just want to name that. And I want all of us to take a moment to accept that that's okay. We're all going to do the best that we can given the circumstances, and I know we're all going to treat each other with respect, patience, and understanding if things are a little awkward at times. I also want to say at the start, we are committed to providing an environment free from discrimination and harassment, one that lives up to our values of equality, equity, and inclusion. So we ask all attendees to commit to conducting themselves in a way that's consistent with those values. And if anyone experiences behavior that makes them uncomfortable or that is not consistent with those values, please speak to an EPI staff member. And how will you know who those EPI staff members are? EPI staff members, can you just stand up for 1 second and be recognized? I have to say thank you to the EPI staff who have just done a fantastic job putting together this conference. Obviously, doing it this year is a little harder than it's been in past years for reasons you might imagine, and they've been fantastic. So thank you to the staff. I also want to thank our funders, some of whom are with us tonight. We couldn't do this without your generous support. And I also want to say thank you to the hotel staff, represented by Workers United Local 10. Thank you for all that you do. Now, because this is our first in-person EARNCon in 2 years, and it may be folks' first conference in a while, we've intentionally tried to build in more time for networking and building or rebuilding those connections that we haven't been able to do as easily over Zoom. You'll notice if you look in the agenda, the times between sessions are a little longer, and later in the afternoon on Thursday, rather than another set of workshops, we have a block of time that we're calling flex time, during which we'll have meetings of the regional cohorts. We'll have technical assistance office hours if you want to ask a question of one of the researchers. We're doing a pre-open house / networking session where if you just want to go and hang out and talk to people and talk to the pre-staff, you can do that, or other EPI staff. A couple other things to note on the agenda. Dinner on Thursday night, folks are on their own, but there is a long EARNCon tradition of informal groups organizing to try out local restaurants. We have a sign-up flip chart at the registration desk. If you want to lead a group to a particular restaurant, you can just go write the name of the restaurant, your name, maybe your phone number if you want folks to get in touch with you, and you can do that. We are organizing trips to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Folks have already, I think, ordered group tickets. You've already been contacted for that, but you'll just need to sign up for what time you want to go, because we can only go in like a set number of groups. So sign up at the registration desk for that. Additional sign up at the registration desk on Friday at our closing session. Because we're trying to be more attentive to folks' desire to network and talk to each other, we're going to be doing a discussion session as our last group activity for all of us. And we're going to have affinity tables during that period. And so if there's a topic that comes up in conversations over the next couple of days that you want to dig in more on, and you think that there's probably other like-minded folks here who would want to talk about that, put that idea on the affinity tables flip chart at registration. Maybe put your name next to it too if you want to kind of be the lead person on that group. We're going to be brainstorming some ideas. We'll have some signs up so folks can self-select to whatever tables they want. And if some tables are social, that's totally fine too. But just know that that's there. You can sign up for affinity tables. Couple quick changes to the program. Blaine Griffin from the City Council could not be here tonight. And also the pre-open house and networking session that's tomorrow afternoon is going to be in the Vanda North room, not the room that it's listed in. Fortunately, all of the conference space is this floor, and it's all either here or over there. So it shouldn't be hard to find things. You won't get lost. At every EARNCon, particularly in election years, there's always this mix of sentiment, this mixture of incredible promise and in some cases kind of terrifying peril. Over the past years, our movement has achieved real, powerful victories that have measurably improved people's lives, or will do so in the years ahead. Higher minimum wages, expanded access to paid leave and overtime, unemployment is at all-time lows, giving workers leverage they've never had before. There's greater public awareness of the need to improve job quality and strengthen worker power, greater interest in organizing, and more public support for unions than there's been in decades. That's great. At the same time, we know governments across the country are still struggling to staff basic services. Huge shares of the population still lack basic workplace protections, paid sick days, a decent wage. Lawmakers are trying to take control of women's bodies. Black and brown people are still being murdered by law enforcement. Black and brown communities are still being abused, neglected, in some cases terrorized. Impacts of climate change are getting worse. And of course, an election in a little over a month, that may not go too well in some places. In the face of all that, it's easy to feel pretty deflated. One thing that gives me hope is this community. At the start of the year, when we put the wheels in motion for this conference, we put out a call for sessions, we opened ticket sales, and over the next 2.5 days, we're going to have nearly 300 people coming to share their insights, to brainstorm, strategize, support each other, hopefully inspire one another so that we can achieve more of that promise and avoid as much as we can of that peril. That's pretty amazing. That's pre-COVID levels of attendance. That's really fantastic. So I encourage folks to please be present, ask questions, lean into the challenging conversations, celebrate each other, remind each other that we're in this together. And I'll just close by saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to travel, for being willing to share your time and energy with us. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and engagement in discussions. Thank you for your commitment to this network, to our collective mission, and to each other. Thank you for the hope that you represent. Thank you. And with that, I would like to invite up Amanda Posson from Every Texan.
Hi, y'all. Dave gave me permission to play the game, say you're pro-labor without saying you're pro-labor, since we have extra time, so that's how we'll proceed. I'm Amanda Posson. I'm a senior policy analyst at Every Texan. We are a very, very proud partner of EARN and operating the program, the Southern Worker Power. And just as Dave said, this network is absolutely incredible. And in places like Texas, we are absolutely on the front lines of trying to save and fortify our multiracial democracy, and we would not be able to do this work without the EARN network. So please give yourselves a round of applause, because each and every single one of you have played a pivotal role in making sure that we are putting working families first in Texas. Every Texan, we are a union shop as well. And we organized in February 2020, right before the pandemic, with the Nonprofit Professional Employees Union, IFPT Local 70 unit. Brothers and sisters, I'm sure there's many of us in the room today. And so what this has meant for us being a union shop is that our unit now ensures that our organization is putting union density at the center of every policy solution we put forward for working families. So we're very, very, very proud of that. And this has also given us the opportunity to strengthen our relationships with the Texas AFL-CIO, the Texas AFT, who's in the room with us here today, and many, many other affiliates across our incredibly large and diverse state. So it's not lost on us how important living your values are and unionizing. So without further ado, I am a fourth generation union member, and I am so honored to introduce our keynote speaker for this very important event, AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler. And Liz asked me to keep it short, but is a very sentimental fourth generation union member. I wanted to just highlight the important components of her bio and coming from a union family. President Shuler grew up in a union household. Her father, Lance, was a power lineman and longtime member of Electrical Workers, IBEW Local 125 at Portland General Electric. And her late mother, Joyce, was an estimator in the company's service and design department. In 1993, Shuler was hired at Local 125, where she was thrust into a full-fledged campaign to help the clerical workers organize, an experience that underscored the importance of mobilizing within the local union, particularly for women workers. She went on to help IEBW members in California defeat Prop 226, the so-called Paycheck Protection Initiative that threatened to silence union members in the political process. She then served in the union's Political Legislative Affairs Department as an assistant to the international president in Washington, D.C. Most importantly, President Shuler serves as the chair of the Economic Policy Institute's Board of Directors, where she is committed to leveraging the labor movement's diversity and power to advance social and economic justice for all workers, and supporting the work of state and local policy advocates through EPI's EARN network. President Shuler, we don't have to tell you that in states like Texas and across the U.S., our fight for dignity and economic justice will be won through building a strong, multiracial labor movement. Thank you for your courage, leadership, and vision for a multiracial democracy supported by strong union families. Solidarity forever.
Wow, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. He's clapping already, and I just said good evening. Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you, Amanda, and for the introduction and for your leadership and all your work fighting the good fight in Texas, where workers always need more champions, and where we just saw the nursing staff at Ascension Seton Medical Center organize. And they're just up the road from every Texan, where, of course, as you said, the staff is union. We thank you for your leadership there, too. And so when they say organizing is contagious, I think they mean it. It's happening in Texas. It's happening all across this country. And thank you to our local hosts, of course, Policy Matters Ohio. You have always been steadfast partners, and we appreciate your leadership. I've been spending more time in Ohio. I shouldn't say this, but I love spending time in Ohio, and I want to spend more time in Ohio. And I just came in from Columbus, where Naomi Walker hails from. And it's just been great to really be in touch with our members and working people. And I always want to be out in the field with my finger on the pulse of what's happening, because we spend way too much time in Washington, D.C. And that's not where the action is, and that's why you're here, because the action is at the state level. That's where change is happening. And so being here in Cleveland is awesome. Can't think of a more fitting place to host a policy conference than in the shadows of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because when I think of rock and roll, I think of policy. Not. But it's a privilege to be here joining you, this dedicated group of researchers and advocates and union members and grassroots organizers, because we know the importance of state and local policy and the impact it has on working people's lives. And that is, as I said, where the action is. And as the president of the AFL-CIO, I get to wear a lot of different hats. And one of my favorites is serving as the chair of EPI's board. So I just want to say thank you to Heidi Shearholtz, amazing president, dynamic leader, has just brought such vision and innovation to EPI. Thank you, Heidi. Naomi Walker, of course, who is an AFL-CIO alum. And I just want to thank Dave. Your opening was like perfect. I almost hesitated to follow you, because you laid out the moment, and it's exactly where we are and what we need. And also Valerie, I know, is in the room. I rode the elevator down with you, Valerie, wherever you are. And I just want to say thank you to the EPI staff, who I think is in the room somewhere too, writ large. And we heard NPEU, Local 70 shouted out, and I'll just echo that. So thank you for all your dedication. Because really this is about the work that we're all doing together, as we said, to reclaim worker power in this country. And, the economic trends are what really undergird all of and shape the policy work that we know needs to happen in order to make it a reality. And so it's about communities, it's about labor, it's about advocates and partners all coming together, and that's why I'm so honored to be here. So thank you for giving me the space. And it's about building worker power, but it's also about protecting it, because it's constantly under attack. And people are out there hungry for change. We're seeing it, and you're seeing it in your community, no doubt, right? Are you feeling it around you? People are hungry for change, and the forces that are up against us, pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. And the power of organized money that we're up against, pretty powerful. And those forces want to keep us divided and poor. And we see the trends. We see the trends. During the pandemic, workers on the front lines being called essential. Right? People were outside banging the pots and pans. And then the next minute are being treated as expendable and sacrificing their health and safety through the pandemic to keep this country afloat. And these companies who are making billions of dollars in profits coming out of the pandemic can't find an extra dollar for raises for the people who are actually making them successful. It is unsustainable. Their profits are breaking records. You probably see we do a report called Pay Watch every year, and I know EPI does work on this. The average S&P 500 CEO, guess how many times the average worker they're making now? 100, 200, 300? 324 times the average worker. It went up, I think, from 299 to 324 in the last year. Okay, so we're being asked to do more with less, and our bosses are collecting bigger and bigger paychecks and literally buying rockets. Okay, it's not right, and it's not sustainable. And so we have to reset the balance of power, and working people know it. We're fed up. We're fired up. and we're ready for change. But we're not set up for a fair fight. Our labor laws are broken. Newsflash, right? Labor laws are broken, and companies can fight union organizing with no consequences. They can refuse to bargain in good faith. They can fire people who organize. They can hold captive audience meetings. They can replace workers who are striking for better pay. Or they can intentionally misclassify workers to deny them the legal protections that come from being an employee, as you know so well. They get a slap on the wrist, if that. It's become a playbook. It's become a billion-dollar industry to union bust. But despite all of that, and that's what gives us all hope, it keeps us waking up in the morning, workers are rising up. A surge of organizing like we've never seen before. Amazon, Starbucks, rising up. Industries all across this country. It's amazing to see the breadth and scope of organizing. You know, the nurses I mentioned in Austin, Texas, REI workers in the Bay Area. Who knew? REI. Workers, sheet metal workers and painters in Alaska and Louisiana. Aircraft mechanics in North Carolina. Researchers at Mount Sinai Medical School. That's right. Okay, they get an applause. Auto workers. Hotel workers. Even architects and cannabis workers. They're my favorite. And I met with them in New Jersey recently, and incredible model in New Jersey. They call it from seed to sale. And you know, they always want to give you something when you leave those meetings. And I grew up in Oregon, and I am a professional. So, but the point is, no industry is off limits. Workers are rising up all across the economy, and you're seeing it. And the AFL-CIO is all in. Workers everywhere, in places that we never thought possible, including the emerging sectors, you know, the emerging areas of the economy like high tech. You know, video game developers are organizing a union, right? They're working in crunch. Yeah, I got some gamers in the audience. What about the clean energy industry? An industry that is largely non-union is organizing. The offshore wind industry. We have a model project labor agreement now with Ørsted, a Danish offshore wind developer, that is a top-down agreement, so all of their work will be union all up and down the East Coast, union scale. And we're even growing our reach in professional sports. You may have seen this month we welcomed our 58th affiliate, the Major League Baseball Players Association. And we have a sports council within the Federation because we are trying to connect the fights of professional athletes to the fights with the rest of the labor movement. So that if you have a major league star, that major league star is lending their talent and support to the player that is struggling to start his career. And you saw the minor league players. We were able to bring them together with the major leaguers. And they got voluntarily recognized by the league. 5,000 minor leaguers now are union. We're making, on average, $13,000 a year as a minor leaguer. $13,000 a year, working 2 and 3 jobs to pursue their dream. And so we're going to change that. And we want those construction workers who are building the stadiums, the servers who are working at the concessions, to be working with those athletes together, because they're all workers and they all deserve to have a voice, to be protected and paid. And those fights are easier to fight when we're together. And so we see this moment as an inflection point for organizing. No matter what kind of job you're doing, you have a place in our movement. And so that's the idea behind our new Center for Transformational Organizing, which we launched at our convention a few months ago. And I keep calling it Labor's Startup because we are looking for innovation. We are looking to do things differently. And we want transformational change. And so this is going to be a place where we bring unions across our federation with partners and allies to go all in on organizing a strategic target like one company, like, I don't know, Amazon, right? Or an entire industry like the clean energy economy. And also like, the gig economy, where we know that there are better models out there for working people. So we know that just one union isn't going to organize Amazon, so we need all of us together working on strategies to take on a company where Jeff Bezos makes in 7 seconds what the average Amazon worker makes in a year. And it's going to take all of us. And it's going to take the EARN network. It's going to take the EARN network to win the state and local policy changes and bring the best minds together through the Worker Power Project to build that momentum. And like we did here in Ohio with Policy Matters Ohio, the All In for Ohio agenda, right, with the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, brings policy minds, union organizers, and other community allies together to fight for an Ohio where working people are paid fairly, are protected from wage theft, and have the chance to join a union. And so when we bring partners together from across the economy and across the state to march together arm in arm into those elected officials' offices, we are unstoppable. We are unstoppable. And another great example, I have all kinds of great examples, and so I'm just basically telling you what you already know, but it's worth lifting up, right? That in Virginia, where the Commonwealth Institute worked with the labor movement and public sector or community partners to bring public sector collective bargaining, and thanks to that partnership, we municipal workers in Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, most recently in Richmond, have all won the right to organize and collectively bargain. We are making public sector bargaining history together. And this is such a different story for public sector bargaining than we were hearing just a few years ago. And it's all because we built the strategy together and we mobilized together to make the change. And that's the theme of tonight. That's the theme of this EARNCon, is making the change together. In Alabama, EARN partner, Alabama Arise. Okay. And the coalition we built together with Jobs to Move America won an enforceable community benefits agreement with New Flyer, North America's largest bus manufacturer. And the collective agreement establishes goals of 45% of new hires and 20% of promotions at each facility be individuals from historically underrepresented communities. Thank you. Because we want good jobs in American manufacturing. It can be done. And people of color, women, veterans, we want the power of unions to leverage those good jobs for communities who have been left out in the past. And that's our job. That's our role as the labor movement, is to blow the doors open wider than ever and make this a movement for everyone. And this is a model that we can replicate. That's the good news, is we have so many great models. All we got to do is add water, right? We got to replicate these everywhere. Policy advocates, researchers, activists, unions, advocates, community, doing the analysis, collecting the data, speaking in the press as experts is gold. Or is it platinum? I'm not sure what the best is anymore, but it's incredible. And our work at the state level in the public sector has a ripple effect across the private sector. Because the public sector collective bargaining agreements that we've been talking about with some of these victories, they empower the private sector workers to try new approaches and innovate and try new things with their bargaining strategies. And there is no limit to the work the labor movement and the EARN network can do together. And it's, again, all across this country, we have so much potential. And I think of our state networks as laboratories for experimentation. And we in the labor movement are doing a lot of self-reflection, investment, reinvention of our network. Because you know the state federations and the central labor bodies all throughout this country have always been what I called our secret weapon. It's unique because we can reach real working people in every industry, in every city and state across the country. And we can mobilize on a moment's notice. It's something rare, and it needs to be as robust and consistent and have the capacity to move the policy work that we're all doing together in sync with our partners and our allies. And so that's what we're doing. We're self-reflecting, we're building, and we're getting back to those face-to-face interactions. I was just telling Amanda, with all the echo chambers out there, Facebook bubbles that we're in, people aren't getting their information like they used to. And we can't break through unless we're talking to each other. And so that is so important as we build toward the future and really think about how we make impact. And our local unions, our AFL-CIO infrastructure are really hubs for activism. And we are involved in the full spectrum of progressive policies that you're going to be talking about all week long. So whether it's education, to healthcare equity, to childcare, to fair taxation, from equal pay to fair housing, to civil and human rights and climate change. We care deeply about these issues in the labor movement, and we're already in the trenches fighting alongside you for the policies that are going to create a more just future for everyone in this country. And so the voice I want to bring into the room and for us to be thinking about is embedding a worker's voice and perspective, not at the end of the process, but at the beginning. And if you're advocating for, say, a budget proposal for funding school lunches or childcare, bring the voice of that cafeteria worker into that conversation, who are serving the lunches. Bring the voice of that worker who is providing the care, because they know what's happening firsthand, and they'll bring a perspective and a passion for those issues that no one else can. Let's also draw on each other's expertise in new and creative ways. And so if we're talking about access to healthcare, for example, can we bring the unique experience of the unions who bargain these issues at the table, the tools, the perspective to those campaigns? Something to be thinking about, because that's often, we're over here bargaining our contracts, and often it's disconnected from the policy work. Can we deepen our work together to think about the tools that state budgets have to help protect the right to organize and the right to have a good family supporting job? So when you think about budgets, investing in rebuilding our infrastructure or helping businesses use technology to modernize, we want workers in those rooms, at those tables, and making sure that those investments are actually benefiting working people. So I'm so excited because when we ask those questions together, when we show up, as I said, arm in arm at those legislatures, we are building power for workers and communities. And when we get all hands on deck, pulling in the same direction, we can accomplish incredible things. And we've seen it before, and we're going to see it again. So, EARN Network, Thank you for your passion, your dedication. You give me hope. And the working people in this country are counting on you to keep pushing, to keep fighting, and keep winning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, President Shuler. One more round of applause, please. Okay, and now it is my pleasure to invite the folks from Policy Matters Ohio to lead us into the content of tonight's plenary. Hannah, come on up.
Don't be shy, come on. Yeah, come on up, panelists. Let's all just hang out. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet because I think I've written and rewritten what I wanted to say to you all like 5 times in the last 20 minutes, so I'm sorry about that. We'll see what happens, okay? Hi, everybody. First, holy crud, that was Liz Shuler up here. I'm following. Madam President, the first of her name, the keeper of the hopes, dreams, mobilization of what, 12.5 million and growing, members of the affiliate unions of the AFL-CIO. That's pretty darn good. And no pressure, you got this. Because we all, everybody in this room and everybody out of this room also have your back. So like that's, what an honor. Thank you for coming to Ohio. Come back anytime. And I'm supposed to introduce myself. I'm Hannah Halbert. I have the absolute privilege, the challenge, the joy of being the executive director of Policy Matters Ohio. It has been the best couple of years I've had in a while, and I just am so grateful to the entire team, the staff, the board, our founding director who's joined our table, all of our partners and members who invest so much in what we do in this little policy shop. And a lot of things have been said about Policy Matters. I think most of you all kind of know who we are and what we do. We've been called like the liberal think tank, the lefty think tank, the progressive think tank. Rarely do we get a listing without a modifier. We like to think of ourselves sometimes as the people's think tank, a think and do tank. And lately we've been thinking about this idea of what does it mean to be a think tank, a do tank, the people's tank, that also leads with its heart, leads with its values. And that's leading us into some uncomfortable, interesting places. It's really been quite the 2 years. I'm very proud of what we're doing in our shop. And I want to, first of all, Dave, thank the folks who are making this conference happen, the folks that are checking you in, keeping you fed, keeping you caffeinated. They're with Workers United, which our staff union is also with Workers United. So I feel a real sibling kinship here. Certainly thanks to the EARN crew. My goodness, you all trying to get us in shape was a task, but you did it and you got us together, and we're so glad to know you. And really, we have a bunch of labor partners here too tonight. Our former board chair, still board member Jeff, who's formerly of the CWA, Dan with North Shore. We have SEIU is here somewhere, OFT, OEA, all of the folks that we work in partnership with leadership and members to move big things in the state. President Shuler mentioned our All In campaign. All In for Ohio's Kids made sure that our school funding was finally finally made constitutional, made equitable in our last budget cycle, and we're hoping to do bigger things in the next budget cycle as well. So all kids, no matter where you're at, no matter the color of your skin, you get a world-class education in Ohio. That's the plan. And really, I wanted to take a moment to thank and celebrate the working people who are organizing in Ohio today. You're going to hear from some of them on the panel. I think Joey, who's been working to organize the Amazon facility up here in Cleveland, is going to show up a little bit throughout the conference. If you're here, Joey, where are you at? Woo. Yeah, there's Joey. Okay, hi, Joey. We know the CEA workers that have been on the picket line. Kroger, there's lots of rumblings in Kroger. I haven't checked Twitter today, so I don't know where we're at on it. But there's so many active organizing campaigns in Ohio, nonprofit, private, public sector folks going out and saying, just like President Shuler said, we're hungry for a better deal. This can't be it. This cannot be it. And seeing that value of collective action. And so my actual charge tonight was to ground this talk in this conference in place and space through statistics. And so pray for me. If you're a praying person, now would be the time. And it's impossible, right? It's an impossible task. But let me just say that Ohio was once a place that drew people in. It was a destination of opportunity. It was opportunity for a higher wage, for a job, for some sort of pathway, a toehold toward the middle class. And that was true. Ohio cities for years was a destination for children of formerly enslaved people seeking a better life in the Great Migration. And certainly my own story is one of Ohio as a destination of opportunity. 4 of my mom's 7 sisters was part of that second wave of migration out of Appalachia, up Route 23 from the hollers and the hills into the factory work that really did give them a shot. And that story is different. It's different for my family that's here in Lima, Ohio. It's different for many of the people who came here and didn't quite get that foothold. And it's certainly, you all have seen the news. You've seen the news, you've seen the headlines. It's hard to imagine Ohio as that place of drawing in, of welcoming, of opportunity. So if I could give you 2 stats on how it's going, I would pick these, and I'm borrowing from Mike's excellent Stay Working Ohio report. These won't be unfamiliar to lots of other states. Since 1979, the only group of workers in Ohio who've seen any significant or meaningful wage increases, there's those in the 90th decile. So that's the people making more than 90% of all Ohioans. Folks at the middle have increased about 72 cents per hour. And those that are in the working poor, those at the bottom of our labor scales have seen maybe a 65-cent increase. And much of that increase is only through the last few years of COVID. It's remarkable. Wages for black men in Ohio since 1979 have been pushed down by policies from criminal justice policies, exporting the discrimination in our justice system into the labor market and vice versa, pushed down by $5 an hour. In 79, black men and white men's wages were 90 cents to $1. that gap has gotten much bigger. And wages for everybody are just too damn low. It's just not enough. And so that promise of Ohio, what do we do with it? How do we reverse course? How do we do this job in a state that is so hostile, and for some of us, hostile to our existence? How do we do this work? How do we turn it around? That's what I'm charging the panel to do, to bring you back up, okay? But long story short, what we do is we make it real. We make it real for everyone. We know how to build shared prosperity. We know how to take care of each other. We know what keeps us safe. And that's what we are going to do and continue to do until that promise is real for each and every person in this state and out of it. I'm so proud to be here with you all. I'm going to introduce the panel and let these folks tell you about the good work that they are doing for and with each other and fighting the fights that really are going to matter. So I'm going to introduce them. All right. Bree Easterling. Hi, Bree. All right, Bree. Bree is our public safety fellow, just joined Policy Matters this summer. And Bree is working to develop a non-police care response for people in crisis due to mental health issues, substance abuse, being neurodivergent or unhoused. Bree has a rich background in social justice reform, community engagement, and grassroots activism. And Bree has been incredible. I say this all the time, you're probably sick of it, I'm sorry, but I'm very proud of it. Bree's the first person who we did like this job announcement. They wrote up the project. Most of the announcement of their hiring was the project, because that's where their heart's at. And landed a TV interview off of it. No big deal. So, kind of great. We're so glad to have Bree with us. We also have Colleen Damerel. Colleen works at Preterm, an independent abortion clinic in Cleveland. She was part of the bargaining committee for Preterm Union's first contract. Bree is also, that's right. Bree's son? Sorry, Colleen, I'm nervous. Colleen is also a member of the Northeast Ohio Workers Center's inaugural board. You can see her writing about the intersection of abortion and nonprofit industry labor issues in Mike and Rewire News, but mostly on her Twitter page. All right, Colleen, thank you. Gabe Santo here. Gabe is an organizer with Starbucks Workers United. Gabe is co-organizer of the Westerville Starbucks Union and a summer intern for the Starbucks Workers United movement, helping build solidarity on the national level. And hashtag no contract, no coffee. Get with it. If you haven't, you should look that up and get on that. And also, I saw Gabe do an interview on, it was like local Columbus news, I think. And one of the things that really moved me was talking about caring for other coworkers. He's going to get into that, but I'm so glad he was able to join us tonight. We also have Jay Sanchez, a union member with Columbus Education Association. Jay is, that's right, Jay is an experienced high school teacher. Bless you. And union leader who served on CEA's core bargaining team during their recent strike and round of negotiations, which they brought home a pretty good deal from that effort. Lots of protections for students to make the lives of students, for lives of everyone they care about, a little bit better. We will hear from Isabel Alvarado. She is the outreach coordinator with the Central Ohio Workers Center. And Isbel's worked with immigrants and low-wage workers on employment rights violations, primarily with wage theft. Isbel has been the person holding our Central Ohio Workers Center together also Allie. But really a champion, and I'm very excited for her to close this panel. And then finally, Daniel Ortiz. This guy right here. Daniel is our outreach director, and he's from Lorain, Ohio. He went to Oberlin. He's been with us since 2016. He's done all you can do in organizing, campaign strategy, and education, but Daniel really has, over the last few years, Daniel in so many ways has become the heart of a lot of our work, keeping us together and asking about how and who with, not just the what of our work, not just the product, the paper, the timeline, but how, who, and why. So Daniel, please, please take this away, and nice job.
All right, thank you, Hannah. Please give Hannah Halbert a round of applause. All right, so we're going to talk about some organizing. I'm going to give a little bit more context as if you don't have enough, but first off, welcome to Cleveland. So, you know, our city's motto is progress and prosperity. And I think that's a callback to a lot of what Hannah was talking about in the story of Ohio. You know, it's that vision of shared prosperity that, you know, my family came to Lorain, Ohio from Puerto Rico. And my grandparents, you know, came for those union jobs in the steel and auto industry, right? And along with that and community support and policies like the GI Bill, my parents were able to access an education and, you know, a shot at a better life. And really that shared prosperity, you know, enshrined through policy, whether it's inclusive or exclusive, you know, drives political movements. Who is included or cut out in those bargains really matters. And when we increase prosperity and expand opportunity for everyone, that's a sign of real good progress. We all deserve a government that works for all of us and a future where everyone can thrive. And, you know, here in Ohio, let's be real, when we see red line maps that overlays racial housing segregation, environmental pollution, voter suppression, and civic disengagement, we see the story of discrimination. So, again, welcome to Ohio. For years, Ohio policymakers have given the public's money, our tax dollars, to wealthy corporations with few strings attached. And these lawmakers' decisions have gifted corporations with more money and more power to push back against worker organizing and contributes to this decline in union jobs that we've seen. This perfect storm of worsening workplace conditions, eroding safety net supports, and heated political rhetoric has left so many Ohioans feeling disconnected and angry. You know, building off of that, a well-connected few sees the opportunity to push a narrative of racial scapegoating, and it really just continues to foment distrust here in Ohio. You know, our state is steeped in disinformation campaigns and political violence. A wealthy and well-connected few continue to push to divide us by race, class, and place. And, you know, it's all, I think, in an effort to just divide and distract us from the shared challenges that we're facing. A handful of Ohio's elected leaders, you know, have really ramped up their efforts in the past few years and eroded the public trust by purging voters, adopting unconstitutional gerrymandered maps, and committing, I think, unfortunately, way too many sensational state and local corruption scandals that people just continue to feel that disconnect. People question what role our government will play in our day-to-day lives and if our elected leaders can be trusted to deliver on their promises. And, you know, these are the conditions. Sorry, I'm reading. My iPad is acting up. Lost my spot, but these are the conditions that, you know, we face, and we continue to fight that challenge. And, you know, to win, I think it's been said a few times, to win we need all of us. and we all need to play a role. So with that, all the folks in this room, every last one of us, has real power, and we're meeting the challenges of our respective communities across the country. We all feel that pain, and we see it with our family members, our friends, and fellow workers. But we also have an analysis, right? And a deep understanding of history, of the economy, and that analysis, I think, can continue to show up in different ways. It's how we show up and share that analysis is a part of our practice of solidarity. Now, being in community and showing up for organizing partners continues to move the work forward. And the stories that we all tell inform the organizing ahead of us. So whether you are a researcher, whether you are a communications professional, an organizer, or a campaign staffer, or a funder, just remember that we are all workers. So take a few minutes with this panel and relax and embrace some flexibility in your role, and just dream with us a little bit. Envision, how we move the work forward through collaboration and this deeper sense of community. Now, as we imagine, how our worker movements could look with responsive governments working to restore balance in a landscape that overly favors corporations, think, how do we get there? How do we get to that future? And I think it's especially pointed to lift back up, the EARNCon is a special place, right? This is a place to imagine and to discuss these ideas. Through the years that I've come to this conference, it's really lit a spark with my colleagues and I to start a public conversation on how to bring a worker center to Northeast Ohio. And shout out to the worker center table, yeah, we see you. And also how to start a staff union. And I think as President Shuler said, organizing is contagious. So let's get bit by that bug. I'm a proud member of Workers United, Local 2843. Our Midwest nonprofit local. And, the Northeast Ohio Worker Center is very much real and organizing and leading an advocacy campaign called Guardians for Fair Work, pushing for stronger wage theft enforcement and fair scheduling practices. But it all starts by taking a first step, right? So at the heart of all the institution building and policy wins is the skills of collaboration and commitment to show up for one another. And this is the path forward. And that's why we're gonna have this conversation with an amazing panel of folks organizing and creating spaces that bring our movements together. So first up, my colleague Bree. So Bree, as you are our most recent arrival on our crew, and really the work you're doing is vital. I want to give you the opportunity to answer the first question. And we were talking about our State of Working Ohio report and the glaring point that came up in terms of the barriers that Black folks face in the labor market, specifically the racism in our criminal justice system that disproportionately impacts folks' ability to thrive. If you could share with folks some of that background, but also how those challenges inform your organizing and what you're fighting for here in Cleveland.
So I know we touched on this a bit during the introduction. My advocacy background has particularly been in criminal legal reform, bail reform, pretrial justice, and now non-police care response. And so, in talking about this statement of work for Ohio and the glaring statistics that were there about the amount that Black men have lost in the workforce, we have to acknowledge that the over-incarceration has played a major part in that. And in talking about over-incarceration and the prison industrial complex, we have to acknowledge that not just incarceration, but the criminalization of mental health, within people being by people incarcerated. And so my job, what I'm focused on in terms of building out a non-police care response, is access somewhat like a intercept zero to where, if we can decrease the interactions that BIPOC communities and other marginalized communities have with police, that essentially directly and indirectly helps with creating an equitable workforce. Because, you can't have a workforce if somebody's locked up, then they're not able to work and they're not able to contribute to the economy. And so, I say that to say, what I'm fighting for is, I'm fighting to this is tough for me.
Take your time.
I'm fighting to keep my community alive. We're dying. And you can't have a labor movement without living people. And so, not only am I fighting for that, I'm fighting for the decriminalization of mental health. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like from a lived experience, with coming from a marginalized community, being a disabled veteran, this hits home for me. So pardon me if I do stumble over my words and things like that, but that's because I'm very passionate about this. And so again, ultimately what I'm fighting for is to keep folks that look like me and folks that are in my community alive, and to decriminalize mental health and also decriminalize disabilities altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next up, Gabe, do you have a mic? Perfect.
I got a mic.
All right, you got
it
a
works.
Mic. You ready?
Hi, everybody.
So, Gabe, thank you again for all the organizing that you're doing with Workers United. And, that campaign has so many of us energized, right, and talking about organizing campaigns. But if you could take it back and just, think about your time working at Starbucks, specifically, the early part of the pandemic, what changed about your work and got you and your coworkers interested in organizing?
I think what really changed is how often we were told that we were essential and that we mattered, but every day we came into work and we realized we didn't matter. Every day we would come into work and I got tired of seeing my coworkers cry after a shift, and I can't keep telling a 17-year-old kid that it's gonna be okay. Like they're gonna leave this job, go to their next job, and it's gonna be the same environment. And we kept getting told by bosses at Starbucks that this was gonna change, and the pandemic ended, and we weren't essential workers, and the environment stayed the exact same way. And that was our main motivation for reaching out, because we didn't just want pay raises. We wanted a third place environment that our customers got, but for us as well.
Thank you for that. Now, Colleen, you got a mic? Perfect. Okay. So.
Is it working?
I'm not sure if it's working. Make sure.
Might need to use a different one.
All right.
Hello. There
All
we go.
right. Well, first shout out to you for being a founding board member of the Northeast Ohio Worker Center. But to pivot, could you share some of the organizing story of why workers at preterm felt it was important to unionize?
Yeah, I think everyone would have a slightly different answer, but there are a lot of things that had been, like at a lot of workplaces that unionize, stewing for a while. A big part of it was wages, but it was also about having a voice in our job. That came up a lot with COVID. And I think for a lot of people, the turning point was when the board selected an executive director that the staff were not happy about. So for a lot of people, that's when it really kicked into full gear. And we asked for voluntary recognition in December of 2021. So that was a little bit after the Supreme Court's decision to let SB 8 stand in Texas. It was a little bit after the oral arguments in Dobbs v. Jackson. So we knew our livelihoods could be at risk. And we wanted to have protections for us in the event of layoffs or in the event of significant changes to the care we could provide. Because we, other than our patients, we're the people who know best about what that care needs to look like. And, sorry, I made notes. So we're the first union at an independent abortion clinic, although there are workers at Planned Parenthood clinics and at other non-clinic repro organizations that have unionized, so we took some inspiration from them. And I'm proud to say we have our first contract. We were able to achieve a lot of things that we wanted, like having a voice on the job through patient care and labor management committees. We were also able to raise the starting wage at preterm to $20 an hour. And that, yeah. And that resulted in the greatest increased income for our lowest paid staff, who are mostly young women and non-binary people of color. So that was a huge victory for us as a staff. And really it just came from knowing that abortion care can't happen without abortion workers, and we needed to protect ourselves.
Thank you, Colleen. Now, Jay, you and I, I'm so grateful we had a chance to talk a little bit this afternoon. Shout out Lorraine, of course, another Lorraine person. Now, we also discussed a little bit, in previous conversations around the moral clarity and how that motivates you to taking action. And I think, that to me hits so hard with the story. And as a member of the Columbus Education Association's bargaining team, they just won a contract. I think that comes through there. So if you could tell us about some of the challenges and the bargaining conditions that you faced and what it is that you won for, your students and your fellow teachers in this last contract.
Sure, I appreciate the question, but I did just leave the negotiation table. So I'm going to offer a counter proposal to this qualifier that these folks have done good work. I'm going to classify it as great work that they've done, and I hope you'll accept that without a lot of fight. So in Columbus, we were bargaining with a school board that was made up mostly of politicians that I would classify as upwardly mobile, very interested in maintaining the status quo and not angering the levers of power that got them in their first position in hopes of moving on to the second position. We were bargaining with a school board that's guilty of divesting in our schools to the tune of about $50 million in abatements last year. Giving tax breaks to companies that don't need them, or corporate or developers to build $600,000, $500,000, $700,000 condominiums with owners that pay lower taxes than I do in my modest ranch. We were bargaining with a school board that was intent on dividing, disrespecting, gaslighting, lying, and manipulating the process the entire way. We were bargaining with a school board that was accustomed, quite frankly, to a weak union, a condition that we worked to resolve about 3 years ago. If your union isn't strong, make it strong. You will lose. You will have no respect at the table, and when they give you a final offer, you will have to take it. We didn't do any of that. They gave the same strategies that they used to the previous leadership. They tried to walk away from the table. They tried to not negotiate in good faith. They gave us final offers. Well, we're going to give you, that's not really our final offer is what they said in their news conference. They're not very good, by the way. When you have politicians that don't actually have to talk to people to become elected because they're hand appointed, they don't really make good politicians. So they do really bad press conferences, I find. And they look really nervous because they know they're lying. And then when they finally gave us what they call their last best offer, their LBFO. We said, LBFU, we're not taking your offer. We're taking a 10-day strike notice. And they just simply didn't believe we would go on strike because we hadn't in about almost 50 years, which is about 48 years too long, you know, and 2 years too long. And every 3 years, I'm fine with going on strike. If you can win what we won on our strike, which was after a 3-day strike, there were 10 open issues when we went on strike. We got movement on 9 of the 10, and the one we didn't get, we really didn't want anyway. We were able to win for our students, imagine this, heat and air conditioning in their classrooms. Yeah, you heard that right. We had to go on strike to get heat and air conditioning guaranteed for our students in their classrooms. They just simply wouldn't do it, didn't want to do it, hadn't done it. Our kids were in sweltering heat in buildings that were built fine, but then had been modified through the years to, you know, put a new roof on and cover the heating, the roof vents that would have let the heat escape, and now it's just heat trapped inside the buildings. The school buildings is how they wanted to classify it. They said the building's air conditioned. I'm like, yeah, I know the principal's office has air conditioning. That doesn't make the classroom's air conditioning. Yeah, the gym is an actual classroom. There's a physical education going on. And why don't we put air conditioning in the lunchroom where all the kids are, or the auditorium? They just simply didn't want to do it. So we won that for our students. We won, let's see, all the things. That's a pretty big one. We won paid family leave for all of our types of families, for adoptive parents, for foster parents, for birth parents, for non-birth parents. Whatever your family looks like, you can get paid family leave in Columbus, Ohio, in the Columbus City Schools. And we won the largest pay raise we'd had in about 40 years, which is still too low. But we weren't there for ourselves. We were there for our community, and we're happy to get what we could win. We also got the 3 days payback for being on strike.
All right. I love it. I love hearing about wins. So I think continuing with that, you know, and maybe switching things up, I'm going to go right back to you, Jay, but would like to talk a little bit more about our practice of solidarity, right? So, you know, I think hearing from what the wins that you got in this contract around heat and air conditioning and other items like paid family leave, you know, that's going to have an immediate impact on so many folks, right? But how do you see your role, your role as a teacher and union leader as really bargaining for the common good?
Okay, so one of the big things I left out was that we won smaller class sizes in elementary, in middle, and high school, which benefits all of those children throughout their education, that they have a classroom where they can have more teacher attention, the ratios are going to be correct. And we didn't win that on our own. We had tremendous community support because we were telling the truth, and every parent knew it because they'd been in the schools. Every parent who'd been to ours, who had an athlete in our schools, came to our facilities and saw those kids sweat in our gyms, and then they went to the suburban school and had the air conditioning in the third gym at that school, and not just the only one we had. So everything we did was about, and this is the part that's really, you know, you have what we're trying to do is to win the schools that Columbus students deserve, right? You want safe, properly maintained, fully resourced schools in every neighborhood. And it's a wonderful message. And we turn the message into a reality, right? There's nothing better you can do than to fight for a worthy cause and win and mean it, right? Because I've seen so many people give speeches with powerful, meaningful words, and the speech was meaningless because it didn't result in a damn thing, right? We went out there and we got 4,500 teachers on a picket line, and they were mad at us when we ended it in 3 days. They were angry with us, not because of what we won, but because they wanted the strike to last longer. But I was proud of it, you know, because we turned a motto, like, you never know how many people believe it, right? All along the route, the outcome was not assured. The support we would find among our members were not assured. And it's a powerful feeling to have a sense of justice and morality for the kids that you see every day. They're not a cell in a spreadsheet, as much data as you want, statistics you want. That kid is a set of eyes that I look into every day, you know? And teaching is a powerful thing. I have a crystal ball in my hand, and with it I can see the future of a child in front of me, and I have to do every damn thing I can, every moment in that classroom to make sure that future happens for half of the kids, and every damn thing I can every moment to make sure their future doesn't happen for the other half of the kids. And it's a powerful, painful thing to do. And I'll be damned if I was gonna let a school board rob our kids because they wanna have a developer make more money.
Thank you, Jay. Now,
I hope I answered your question.
I think you got it. So, Gabe, switching to you. We kind of talked about this. You know, the service sector jobs in Ohio have grown substantially while we lost so much in recent years of our industrial base. If you could share how you've seen that show up in your organizing work.
Could you repeat that real quick?
Yeah. Just the growth in the service sector jobs, if you want to share more about how you've seen that, you know, show up in your organizing work.
Yeah, Starbucks is a really interesting company because over the pandemic, although some stores closed constantly, some stores stayed open, and because those stores stayed open, they had increased customer flow. There was a point in time where the wait in the cafe was so long that food would get cold. We'd have a 45-minute wait in the cafe for a cup of coffee and a sandwich, and we were still making the exact same wages. There was a period of time where there was only one store open in the district, which was a store I was at, and we were expected to work with the exact same amount of people we would have had if all 10 stores in the district were open. There's products not being delivered to our store. Fun fact, telling a Karen that we are out of large cups for their coffee is a very tragic thing. It almost sounded some days like I killed their family dog, and I was the problem, not Howard Schultz and the people that were supposed to be running that company. And when our store did win our union vote, the work didn't stop. The problems are still there. That's why, is it okay if I talk about no contract, no coffee? Okay. If you go on StarbucksWorkersUnited.org, there's a little thing called No Contract, No Coffee. And Workers United can let the community know through that about opportunities to be involved with direct action with the workers. Because a lot of us baristas, this is our first time being involved in union actions. This is our first time being involved in speaking up for our rights in the workplace. And we could really use the help from experienced community members, inexperienced community members, because the effects of COVID have not ended for the service industry.
Thank you, Gabe. Colleen, so pass the mic. Yeah. We talked about this a bit, but you know, with the Dobbs decision and you know the impact that that's having on your work, you know, we already knew that the United States has one of the highest maternal mortality rates of developed nations, and it's specific that Cleveland has notably high Black maternal mortality rate. But with the Dobbs decision, you know, and access to abortion and bodily autonomy issues top of mind, what are the things that, you know, unions and other organizations, you know, what can we do to be in solidarity and guard abortion and reproductive health access for our members?
Yeah, so I'm going to start by zooming out a little bit to talk about reproductive justice. So this was a framework developed by Black feminists in the 90s to be more expansive than just reproductive health or reproductive rights. Reproductive justice is about actually having a free and meaningful choice to choose if, when, and how to become a parent, and to parent the children you have in a safe and just world. So this goes beyond just the type of healthcare you get. It's about economics. It's about relationships. And so the reason that mortality rates for people who give birth and for infants are very high in the United States, in Cleveland, is not just because of the healthcare people have access to or the health decisions they make. It's deeply related to poverty and systemic racism and classism. And so we actually have to look at how all of these things intersect to affect people. And we know that the loss of abortion access is going to make this worse. This problem is going to compound. There are certainly going to be people who are able to leave unfriendly states to seek care elsewhere. There are going to be people who manage their abortions at home, but this comes at personal cost. And there are going to be people who simply are going to continue pregnancies that they otherwise would not. This makes the problem of mortality rates for people who give birth and for infants worse, because people don't have a choice about if, when, and how they're going to be pregnant, become parents. There's a great study called the Turnaway Study that followed people over many years, followed people who were able to get the abortions they wanted and people who were denied wanted abortions. People who were denied wanted abortions become loving parents to the children that result, but they also are increased risk of losing their jobs, losing their housing, remaining in abusive relationships. So this has ripple effects for everybody. This is a huge problem. So how does this relate to labor? I was actually part of a group of unionized workers in repro, so both clinic workers and non-clinic workers, who wrote a letter to the labor movement at large. I wish I had, like Gabe did, like a snappy place to tell you where to get it. If you find me at the reception, I can hook you up. But one of the things we wrote about in this letter is that the labor movement, on the whole, has a lot of power, has a lot of power to stand up for abortion access, and also to stand up for things like paid leave and childcare, and also to protect the people who offer that care, the abortion workers like us, the childcare workers, the people who work in labor and delivery at hospitals. Unions have the power to make it a better world for the people who need care and the people who are providing the care. And one of the other things I think is important to keep in mind is that the labor movement needs to not be afraid of sticky or political issues. You have to say the word abortion. Like, a lot of people just won't even say it. Won't even say, abortion is important. This is an issue that affects everybody. And can't be afraid to talk about how this also relates to trans rights, because we know the right is coming after trans people as much as they are coming after people who need abortions. We have to remember that women are not the only people who need abortions. You'll notice I use inclusive language when talking about that. So I think as we move in like the labor movement and political spaces, we have to keep that in mind. We also have to keep in mind that the anti-abortion movement is rooted in white supremacy, and we have a responsibility to fight white supremacy wherever we find it, including in the labor movement. So, I mean, one of the things that we wrote in that letter was that we think cops need to be out of labor unions. And because people are going to be criminalized for their pregnancies. So I'll wrap up by saying, when we talk about how we're going to maintain abortion access, how we're going to help people through this time, it comes in the form of mutual aid and community care and solidarity. And at its best, that's what the labor movement can do. So we can save us, we can protect us.
Love it. Thank you, Colleen. Bree, we've had so many good conversations on this, but in terms of the intersection of all of our issues here and how we are really trying to bring and make sure that we have a care response model that really speaks to everyone. I would love to hear on, I guess, if you could share more about the systemic change involved in what a care response means in practice and in principle, about how we practice solidarity.
Yeah, so, non-police care response is essentially just an entity of how we are looking to redefine public safety. Because right now, in practice and in concept, public safety it criminalizes Black and brown people. It is a dog whistle for white supremacy, the term in itself. And, that has to be looked at, and I love coming off of what you just said in terms of that bodily autonomy. That has an intersection in itself between, reproductive rights and mental health and behavioral health. The person's right to live a human experience and not be criminalized for it. And so, again, how that relates to my role and how it relates to being in solidarity with the labor movement. We have to acknowledge the gap in or the lack of voices that are heard in speaking or in having input in the labor movement, because again, if a person is locked up, how are they going to have any input? And if a person isn't alive, how are they going to have any input to what a ethical labor movement looks like? And so, solidarity is showing up and advocating for your neighbor to get the equitable pay, equitable care, and other essential resources that they need to thrive here in this society. And so, as a call to action for all of us in this room, I would like to lift up that we need to have a deeper understanding of our shared struggles, but also having empathy for the struggles that we don't share.
Beautiful. All right, so I think this was the time we're going to open it up for any questions from the audience. So I'm not sure if there are mics around or if folks just wanted to ask questions, but now's the time. Yes.
Hi, I have a question for Colleen. You mentioned mutual aid as one of the solutions and how to bring our communities together. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how all of our different entities could do that within our own communities?
Sure. So one of the things that I think about for the future of abortion and reproductive health access is it's not going to come from courts and politicians. I feel a little weird saying that because right now in Ohio, we got the heartbeat ban blocked by a court. Thank you to that judge. So not dissing that guy. But the people who are doing the work right now in the months that have followed Dobbs are abortion funds and practical support networks. They are helping people get the money they need. They're helping people travel. They're helping people get childcare for their kids so they can, travel to get care, because about 60% of people who have abortions are already parents. So that presents barriers as well. And so I think in our communities, we need to find out who's doing that work and support them either with our money or with our vote or by volunteering. So just as an example, here in Ohio, the Abortion Fund of Ohio is doing incredible work. I mean, I see every day how they help patients get care, whether that's here, traveling to other states, because before the ban was blocked, we were sending people to Pennsylvania, Michigan, New York, Illinois, Maryland, and it takes money to get people there, and AFO was working really hard to do that. I know people who drive folks to their appointments, you know, multiple hours out of state. So I think we have to be able to show up for each other. We have to know where to get accurate information on abortion, to share that with our communities, because you never know who in your life is going to need to know what website to go to get accurate info. By the way, it's ineedanA.com and abortionfinder.org. So I think that's kind of a rambling answer, but hopefully it addresses your question.
Awesome, thank you. And I just got a sign that we are actually at time. So please continue to have conversations with our panelists as we move to the reception in a minute. But I think, you know, what we're hearing for all of our speakers this evening is, you know, when we come together across race, place, class, and honestly, even sector, title, we can really do meaningful work and build worker power and continue to transform our communities and our country. So with that, I'd love to welcome up Isabel Alvarado, Outreach Coordinator with the Central Ohio Worker Center, to give us closing remarks.
Buenas noches y muchas gracias a nuestros fantásticos panelistas esta noche. Mi nombre es Isabel Alvarado y soy la coordinadora de alcance del Centro de Trabajadores de Ohio Central en Columbus. El Centro de Trabajadores de Ohio Central en Columbus educa, empodera y aboga por y con los trabajadores inmigrantes de bajos salarios en el centro de Ohio. En el Centro de Trabajadores de Ohio Central hemos visto que estos temas de solidaridad, interseccionalidad y colaboración se traducen en victorias para los derechos de los trabajadores. En el 2020 utilizamos la investigación de Policy Matters Ohio para crear un plan de divulgación y educación a largo plazo para educar a nuestra comunidad sobre el problema de robo de salarios. El robo de salarios afecta de manera desproporcionada a los trabajadores hispanos, los trabajadores afroamericanos, mujeres trabajadoras y a los trabajadores de bajos salarios. Muy a menudo, cuando educamos a nuestra comunidad sobre el robo de salarios, escuchamos, eso me pasa a mí o me pasó a mí. Trabajamos con otras organizaciones comunitarias, sindicatos y aliados, líderes de la ciudad, para impulsar con éxito y ganar una de las ordenanzas más estrictas del país contra el robo de salarios. Desde que los trabajadores de Columbus ganaron la ordenanza, hemos trabajado con funcionarios electos y servidores públicos de la ciudad de Columbus para crear un proceso de quejas realmente accesible. También creamos un manual para conocer sus derechos en el lugar de trabajo y lo hemos puesto en manos de cientos de trabajadores. Hemos ampliado nuestra clínica de robo de salarios, incluyendo la creación y el crecimiento de relaciones con el Departamento del Trabajo Federal, el Departamento del Comercio de Ohio, la Junta Nacional de Relaciones Laborales, abogados laborales a los que podemos referir casos y organizaciones asociadas que trabajan para combatir el tráfico laboral y empoderar a los inmigrantes. También comenzamos a organizar capacitaciones sobre el robo de salarios con centros de trabajadores asociados y otras organizaciones. Estas son algunas de las grandes victorias de las que estamos orgullosos, pero comenzamos poco a poco, elaborando estrategias con un trabajador afectado por el robo de salarios a la vez y haciéndonos preguntas como ¿con quién hablamos? ¿Quién conoce la ley? ¿Quién en la Junta podría tener una conexión o una idea? Por ejemplo, una mujer hispana, pintora de oficio e inmigrante, nos contactó al Centro de Trabajadores de Ohio Central porque fue víctima de robo de salario. Ella renunció a su trabajo porque su empleador constantemente no le pagaba ni correctamente ni a tiempo. Su empleador le dijo que debido a que renunció, no recibiría su último cheque de pago por las horas que ya había trabajado ni por las horas extra que aún le debían. Pudimos ayudarla de la siguiente manera. Primero, discutiendo su caso internamente con miembros de la Junta que conocen las leyes contra el robo de salarios. Segundo, evaluando sus mejores alternativas, principalmente considerando económicamente el dinero adeudado. Tercero, conectándonos con la División de Horas y Salarios del Departamento del Comercio de Ohio, una agencia con la que nos relacionamos anteriormente y que nos brindaron capacitación. Y cuarto, ayudándola a presentar la queja y a responder a las solicitudes de la División de Horas y Salarios durante el proceso de investigación. Como resultado, la trabajadora recibió el pago de sus salarios adeudados. Hemos aprendido algo de cada trabajador que hemos conocido. Construimos poder con cada voluntario y donante del centro. Ahora sabemos cómo y a dónde referir los casos correctamente. Por ejemplo, el Centro de Trabajadores de Ohio Central evaluó un caso que involucró alrededor de 15 trabajadores bajo la visa H-2A, que es el Programa de Trabajadores Agrícolas Temporales, y estos trabajadores fueron víctimas de robo de salario y violaciones de la Ley de Protección de Trabajadores Agrícolas, migratorios y de temporada, incluyendo violaciones de transporte, vivienda y el mantenimiento de registros. Cuando trabajamos con ellos, sabíamos a dónde referirlos y qué preguntas debíamos hacer para asegurarnos de que su estatus migratorio estuviera protegido. Otro ejemplo es cómo ahora conocemos todas las señales para identificar el tráfico laboral porque colaboramos y aprendimos de una capacitación ofrecida por la organización Advocating Opportunity. Podemos educar, empoderar y abogar mejor por y con los trabajadores porque lo estamos haciendo en coalición, en unión. Entonces, ¿qué hacemos ahora? Vaya a su casa y apoye a su centro de trabajadores local, sea voluntario, regístrese para donar mensualmente y compre nuestras Very Cool T-shirts. Si no tiene un centro de trabajadores local, comience uno. Lea el libro de Kim Bobo y hable con la gente de su comunidad. Comuníquese con los centros de trabajadores de su región. Hable con la red de análisis e investigación económica EARN. Si vamos a ganar, nos necesitamos a todos. Y ahora nuevamente en inglés. So what do we do now? Go home and support your local worker center. Volunteer. Sign up to donate monthly. Buy our very cool t-shirts. If you don't have a local worker center, start one. Read Kim Boba's book and talk to people in your local community. Reach out to worker centers in your region. Talk to EARN. If we are going to win, we need all of us. Thank you. I'll pass it to Hannah now.
All right, let's give another round of applause to all of our speakers tonight. That was fantastic. And now, without further ado, we have a reception. It's going to be in the room right outside of here. We will be back in this room for breakfast tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., Worker Power Plenary at 8 a.m. Those that want to join me on the group run, we will be leaving from the lobby at 7 a.m. sharp. I will see you there, but until then, enjoy the reception.